The Redevelopment Urban Renewal Plan. Let the record reflect that we do have a quorum.
Open the meeting of the Council Planning Committee. As a part of the public hearing, the requirement by HUD for the planning, the redevelopment agency to have a hearing. It is not a requirement under any law for the Common Council, but we said we do this in tandem with them. We've done most of our meetings for public hearing.
Okay. Thank you. With that, staff will make their presentation.
Chairman and committee members and commissioners, in the interest of timing, I thought that we would do a brief overview, open it up to public comment, and then if there's more specific questions by both the committee and the commissioners with regards to the urban renewal plan, we can go into those in depth. The purpose of the public hearing is obviously on the proposed modifications to the urban renewal plan for the Reed Putnam area. The initial plan was approved in 1983 and most recently modified in 2007. That brought it into a mixed-use development from 1.1 million square feet of Class A office. Since the last revision, there's been significant changes that this modification seeks to record, dealing with legislative changes with regards to projects that are undertaken under urban renewal plans, market shifts, and completed infrastructure improvements. The scope of the revisions are primarily on the remaining undeveloped parcels 1, 2, and 4, as the other major parcels in the planned area have effectively been redeveloped. The goals and objectives of the urban renewal plan modification is to advance mixed-use development by requiring a minimum of 3 land uses in any project being considered for the site, enhance public access and project connections by capitalizing on completed public infrastructure improvements, increase affordable housing opportunities in the project that advance housing development, preserve housing, commercial, and institutional uses that are in the preservation zone, which is to the south of this particular parcels 1, 2, and 4, improve the plan's design guidelines as well. The components of the URP plan modification include infrastructure mitigation and control, land use and controls, urban design guidelines, and regulations on development. The design guidelines overview the design guidelines are applicable to parcels 1, 2, and 4. They're broken down into 3 sections that deal with context and site, public life, and design concepts. The purpose of the design guidelines is to define the qualities of architecture, urban design, and public space that will make for a successful project, and to serve as a tool for guiding the project toward meeting those expectations through the design review process. Again, the design guideline overview function for design guidelines, what they're intended to do is to provide clarity and focus on what is important to consider in the design process from the city's perspective, provide performance-based statements as to what is valued by the city with regards to design, provide the basis for efficient and productive design review dialogue with the developer, and to provide the common element from which fair and consistent design review recommendations can be made. That gives you a brief summary of the URP proposed modification, and at this time we can take public comment.
Okay. I don't know if everyone who wanted to speak has signed up, but we have a short list here. So I will call the name, and if you could come up to the podium, starting with Joanne Horvath, please.
My name is, can you hear me?
Yes.
No?
No.
My name is Joanne Horvath. I live at 1 Cobblers Lane, Norwalk. I will make my comments brief. They concern parking for Bloomingdale's. At a prior public hearing on the mall project on September 15th, 2015, Mr. Farrow the attorney representing GGP stated, quote, "Bloomingdale's wants to have direct access to the parking lot adjacent to its store," end quote. I totally agree with this. As you can see, I walk with a cane and would not want any parking spaces near their store deleted nor placed at a distance far away, which would make it difficult for me to easily access their store. In my opinion, plenty of parking near their entrance is extremely important to the success of an anchor store. It is essential that an agreement be made with Bloomingdale's via GGP regarding this very important issue. Now, do you want me to state my views about what's going on tonight, or is this pertinent?
Whatever you feel comfortable in stating, time is yours.
Okay, because I don't quite understand the whole thing, but this is just to give you one, if I may ask.
There's an urban renewal plan that governs what can be developed on the site. We're modifying the urban renewal plan to make changes on the areas that I just reviewed. And ultimately, the current plan does not allow this particular project to proceed forward. So we're making modifications based on previous actions that have been taken by the Common Council and the Redevelopment Agency that ultimately allow this type of land use to be incorporated into the plan. So now we're catching up with the actions that have been taken in the plan.
Okay, I understand that.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm for you proceeding to go ahead and try to bring this forward.
Thank you.
Thank you. Missy Conrad?
My name is Missy Mary Teresa. I am Conrad. I live at 37 Stonecrop Road in Norwalk. I came to the other meeting, and most of you were there at the other meeting. I have a question. This is a HUD meeting,
No,
a public hearing, you said required by HUD?
no. It's required by state statute.
And I heard Doug Hempstead said that HUD,
But it's required by the state statute that governs urban renewal plans.
yes, okay. And it just seemed that there was something brought up at the last meeting which was interesting. I'm very much in favor of the housing that was supposed to have been there. And I had been at many meetings throughout where the last one, Spinnaker, said, we're going to build some housing. We will not be able to do the green roof because we can't. So I have been following it a long time. It seems that this is quite the last minute right now. I don't know when. I feel that you have made your decisions in a way. You are not, it seems, in favor of the housing of the contract that had been the land disposition agreement. So it's strange that you're having this 11th hour meeting, when after all this time. And I just don't know what you're doing about the housing. And remember, Doug, we lost the Fair Street housing that would have been many units that the Chamber of Commerce and the hospital asked for. I just don't think we can lose these opportunities. And isn't it redevelopment, what affordable housing, I would like to ask, have we added to the city of Norwalk?
It's yours to comment on. It's
No,
not
I
for us
want
to
some
respond.
answers. When I went to Waypoint hearings, I said, how many people have been put out of here? And there was no number. And because, of course, they were crowded, and they were low income, and some of them may have been illegal. And the only answer I received at the Waypoint hearing was, oh, you wouldn't want to live that way or there. And it's not for me, it's for others, right? I just hope that you have been an advocate, a strong advocate for housing.
In that there's not many folks that are speaking, let's take a couple of the concerns that you've expressed. One, housing is allowed under the urban renewal plan as a use. So what we're commenting on here allows for housing. It also requires that there be an affordable component to that housing use.
Yes.
The developer has chosen 3 uses that don't include housing.
But what do we say?
The developer has chosen
Yes,
3.
the developer. Is the developer telling us what to do?
There's 3, you have to
I know.
choose 3 land uses that are approved by the redevelopment agency and the common council. That is the requirement. They have chosen 3 in conformance with those that are approved by the common council and the redevelopment agency, of which housing is not one.
Well, then they set our agenda, in other words, and
That's your
that-
statement.
It's my statement. Well, did you fight for housing?
Housing is...
The affordable
Yes,
component.
housing is an approved land use, and if you are doing a housing project, you are mandated to do a percentage of that housing as affordable.
Yeah. Well, the original contract had in for housing.
The original contract actually had
Which-
no housing.
Oh, don't say the one, I'm talking about the Spinnaker contract that was clear.
That wasn't the original contract.
The original contract was just an open thing. You go by the no, the original contract was in the bad days when people just got pushed out and,
The original contract was with Fred F. French, and it
yes,
was for primarily a Class A office development,
yes. But
of which there was roughly 100,000 square feet of supported retail. That was it. There was no housing.
well, those were in the days, people's homes have been taken in that
For
neighborhood.
that project, that had no housing.
In that, yes, but that's the old days. That's bad government. We're supposed to be doing better government and including people. We don't want to go back to that. The Spinnaker agreement is the most recent, and that's the one that they purchased. And Larry Cafaro told me at Calvary Baptist Church that he cared as much about affordable housing as I do. And I expect to see people speaking out a little bit more for it. It's very important. We're losing this opportunity. All these things. And also, as the gentleman brought up at the last meeting that we had in the community room about the water, hotels use a lot of water. A lot of water. Washing the laundry, the sheets, you know, you can say, don't change my sheets every day. But all the cleanliness they need. So has this been approved by the the sewage treatment plant? You know, that's another issue. It's very important, and water's just so valuable. We're fortunate we don't have the drought, but with changes. So, you know, the hotel, I don't think is as helpful to us all. I mean, well, those of us who care, we all in this room, I'm sure, have a good place to live, but many people don't. And the 3565, if we can get the money for that, and I think we have to take these opportunities and not let them go all the time. And then just say, too bad. Everything's sort of, well, I'm fortunate, but we have to remember everybody. And I just think you have to, for affordable housing, I just want to see more of a commitment. Government does it. The developers are for profit. They're not for everybody. It's, you know, they do nice things. They're going to do nice things. But we need housing. We've been losing. People are crowded. So I feel this hearing at this 11th hour and 59 minutes when you said already, you know, what you're going to accept. So I'm not really happy with the timing, nor the, you know, feeling of everyone, the determination to take this opportunity for housing, affordable housing money. So I thank you all for your work. I know you put a lot of time into it.
Ms. Conrad, I just to answer you, so we're kind of clear that there's nothing here at the 11th hour, the way I understood this. This was voted on back in March at the options the developer had to choose from, right? It included housing or a hotel. That was an option on their behalf. They chose the hotel. That was passed by the council and was passed by the redevelopment agency in March. So that has always been part of the plan after that, because they said they had no interest in building housing, they had an interest in providing a boutique, I think, or limited service hotel.
Well, we knew that they would not build housing, but we do think that money could have been allocated for housing someplace else. And, you know, so it's a very disappointing loss for poorer people in our city. I'm sorry.
Doug Adams.
Thanks. I'm Doug Adams, Senior Director at General Growth Properties. I too will be brief. First, just wanted to thank the agency for holding the hearing and for the Planning Committee, the members and other members of the council for coming out again. You've all devoted a lot of time and patience to this process, and it's much appreciated. The Urban Renewal Plan is an older document, but an important one, particularly the design guidelines, which are the most applicable remaining section. Just a couple of comments. One, it's, as Tim mentioned, it's important that the design guidelines we're requesting to change are for parcels 1, 2, and 4 only. We're not obviously trying to change design guidelines for other parcels in the project. And we have submitted some technical changes dealing mainly with bulking and massing to accommodate the concept master site plan that we've all been reviewing. So irrespective of the design guidelines and their governance of the details of design, overall that it would allow the project we've proposed to move forward, since both documents, the LDA and the Urban Renewal Plan, are critical to the approval process. Related to that is the LDA and the Concept Master Site Plan, since the Planning Committee is here, and we've worked hard. I won't belabor the point. There were 24 original points, consolidated areas of concern down to 16, and we feel we've addressed all of those. There are a couple that we've said before, and I'll say again, are truly problematic for us. The massing over North Water, we understood the sensitivity of this from the very beginning. We've worked very hard to reduce it and will continue, but it's to the point now where we're at the minimum we can agree to and still have a project that delivers on our promises of, you know, Class A anchors and a Class A development that we are bringing and building in our intent. So that's just a critical component. We cannot agree to any requirements to further reduce it. There was a lot of discussion, I thought healthy discussion, on the public realm, and Tim Sheehan spoke properly when he said we understand we were there, we worked with them on the definition, to understand the definition, what I would ask. So we are completely in agreement to bring the required public realm use to the project. It's not an optional choice, it's one required, and we accept that. We ask that before we go through the design review, that the concept public realm plan allow the flexibility to look at different areas, even though there are some that people may feel is not suitable one reason or the other. But until we fully design them, whether they're, you know, they can be enclosed or shielded, or we could put other aspects into it, make it acceptable to the process, we would ask that the flexibility be left in until we arrive at a final concept plan. The agency has made some excellent suggestions as to other spaces that are dependent upon design as well, like the roof, other interior spaces that we fully intend to look at as we move through the process, as we have accepted that portion of their comment. So the third is the slip ramp, but we understand that's been moved to the design phases. It's not applicable for the concept plan. You know, we find it to be a critical component, but understand it's no longer specifically part of this decision. But in closing, I just want to, again, thank the time and the consideration, and appreciate it, and feel we've worked very hard to come up with proposals and comments on both the LDA and the urban renewal plan that help it to move forward quickly to a vote or consideration here in October. Thank you.
Yes.
Anybody else?
And, yeah. No, come on.
Please state your name and.
My name is Sally Marsico, and I'm a writer, not a speaker, so if you don't mind, I'm going to read my statements. I want to thank you for offering a member of the community the opportunity to speak in advance of an important vote. And the decision before the planning committee this evening is whether to pass the CMSP as it is, which will send it to council for approval, is the way I understand it. Before placing the vote, each member of the planning committee will be asking themselves, in making my decision, am I sufficiently comfortable with my knowledge and understanding of this small project and these plans in order to cast my vote? Am I confident that my understanding of a regional shopping center is adequate and sufficient to make a decision? Am I placing my vote with confidence that I have been thoroughly and honestly informed by the agency about all aspects of the development plan? Am I making my decision with any reluctance because I don't fully comprehend either the project or whether the goals of GGP are a match with long-standing goals of the city of Norwalk? Each may even be asking themselves, have the goals of the planning committee been met? With the intensity of elections taking place less than a month from now, there's an understandable sense of pressure to move forward so as to not lose what's been gained. If there's going to be a mall in the location, there is an understandable eagerness to get on with it, which I feel as well. I hasten to say that I've never witnessed such a well-intentioned public body. I could see that every member of the planning committee did their best week after week to grasp aspects of the project that were presented to them by the agency, generously donating their time and attentiveness to the process. Questions were posed by every member of the committee that were insightful and worthy of consideration. In the end, there were not enough questions asked, not because the members wouldn't or couldn't ask them, but because they didn't know to ask them. There simply was not enough prior informed experience on the committee to address the full complement of issues associated with a mall project of this magnitude. Only one person on the planning committee brought prior knowledge of retail development to the oversight project of this project of a major magnitude. The committee is preparing to approve a 950,000 square foot multi-level regional mall that will have a profound impact on the city of Norwalk. But no one on the committee was backgrounded on regional malls. Not one member of the committee represented a perspective from the relevant fields of architecture, retail, transportation, or the well-established fields of urban design, city planning, or public realm. I'm fairly certain that committee members are still struggling to comprehend the important distinction between public realm and mall common area. As a casual observer, I see some flaws in the CMSP. I won't take my book and show them to you because that's not what I'm here to do. I am left with a deep admiration for each and every member of the committee for applying themselves to the task of adequate oversight. Still, it was not enough. I see some flaws. Until an oversight committee includes people who are more familiar with the design and nuances of a regional mall, the project is going to proceed with some glaring flaws. In the end, the committee played an essential role, one that is important to note. This committee finally, after 25 years, agreed to allow something other than office towers be developed on these parcels of land. The insistence that the development of I-95/7 be focused on office towers flew in the face of market conditions year after year for 25 years. The Planning Committee made it possible to expand the development opportunity for retail use. For this, the committee is to be commended. Due to the sincerity of effort, I am proud to call every member of the Planning Committee my friend, my neighbor. Everyone did their best based on what they knew and what they were told. I close. Sally Morsi.
Is there anyone else that would like to? Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commissioners, and members of the council. My name is Larry Cafaro. I reside at 6 Wheat Avenue in Norwalk. I'm also an attorney, one of the attorneys representing General Growth Properties. I did not intend to speak tonight. I wanted to sort of address some of the comments that have been made, particularly with regard to housing. As Mr. Sheehan indicated, appropriately, the urban renewal plan that is the subject of this public hearing includes housing as one of the options, if you will, that a developer could choose on this particular site. That was not chosen by GGP, as is evident to everyone. They chose 3 uses, that being retail, hotel, and public realm. That was not done willy-nilly. That was done in studying not only the city, but the area, the district within which this project hopes to be. As a resident and a lifelong resident, I am very proud of our city, proud of you and your predecessors for having continually modified the urban renewal plan, because it recognizes those changes in the urban renewal plan, recognizes the changes in the market, the demographics, and the district itself. For instance, as Mr. Sheehan appropriately stated, when this project was first planned way back, the first iteration of the plan, it was for exclusively office use. I believe there was some 100,000 square feet of incidental retail, but primarily for office use. There was no housing planned on this property. In subsequent iterations of plans and developers, the latest being Spinnaker, when the last modification had taken place, there were 225 housing units, 225 or 35, that were planned for this area, 15% of which needed to be affordable. Obviously, that project never took off. The land has been vacant. There have been no homes there for quite so many years. But there has been a change, because right next door and up the street in the Waypoint project, which initially anticipated 350 housing units, 15% of which would be affordable. There is now 500 to 800 units planned, 15% or more to be considered affordable. So if you were to look at the immediate district, you would argue that there are actually more affordable housing under the current plan if this project is approved and what is going up over at Waypoint and head of the harbor than there was in 2007, where the predecessor plan was proposed. The second thing I'd like to point out is, in order for housing to be affordable, people need to have an income to afford said housing. And that is one of the aspects that GGP has taken very seriously by putting forth a project that hopes to create thousands of jobs and having a particular interest in those jobs being created in the city of Norwalk, Connecticut. And that is why the LDA, that's one of the subject matters we'll be taking up tonight, includes a 5-year commitment by GGP to provide career and job training for the purposes of having a local workforce that can be employed at the project should we be so fortunate as to get it planned. It is with, we hope, those jobs and the income derived therefrom, that people will be able to afford housing, and afford housing most particularly in this particular district. Whereas I stated before, from 2007 to today's plans that are on the books, there is more affordable housing now and planned than there was 8 years ago. And also, I think the recent reports are out, again, your predecessors and the city as a whole should be very proud that Norwalk's affordable housing stock has increased. So to Ms. Conrad, I reiterate my comment that I made to you, the meeting held at the Calvary Baptist Church. I am personally very much in favor of affordable housing, and I'm proud to say that the client I'm working for is very much supportive of that as well. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to take a comment? Yes. Okay. Going once. Going twice. Okay, great. Thank you. We will now close the public hearing, and from the redevelopment's perspective, close our portion of the meeting.
Okay, thank you. Okay, committee members. It's for those who may or may not know. Committee members, myself, Doug Hempstead as chairman. To my left, committee member Bruce Gimmel, committee member John Tides, committee member Shannon O'Toole, James Durko, committee member Sharon Stewart, committee member Travis Sims, other two councilmen are here, I'm sorry, David McCarthy and John Igneri. Okay. I'd like to move item number 1, Redevelopment Urban Renewal Plan, approve the advancement of Amendment 4 to the Land Disposition Development Agreement by the Norwalk Redevelopment Agency and the City of Norwalk, Norwalk Land Development LLC, the Common Council. This plan has the LDA business terms, has the conceptual master site plan, and the conceptual master site plan approval conditions. Move open for discussion. Main members first, by Mr. Gimmel.
Thank you, Mr. Hempstead. I've been, thinking about and discussing the site plan for a while now, and I found myself in a discussion earlier today about certain aspects of the business terms. And I was, to be honest, my memory wasn't that good. I was preoccupied with other things, so I have a few questions for Mr. Sheehan. I do recall in a provision I support wholeheartedly that whatever consequences that are directly the result of the mall in the vicinity would be picked up by GGP, the cost of those consequences. Okay? The question that was raised for me, is there a mechanism in place to resolve disputes over who caused X or who caused Y, that kind of thing? How exactly does that work? It was one of the questions that was raised.
Consequences, I'm assuming you're talking about infrastructure issues related to...
Primarily.
Right. And I think the issue in terms of disputes, you're correct on that assumption. If there's a requirement for additional infrastructure to support the project, that becomes the developer burden. In terms of the disputes, I'll turn that question over to Eric Bernheim, who is the city's outside counsel on this.
If they're required to implement these infrastructure improvements as one of their approvals from either the zoning body or any of the state governing bodies that are overseeing these approvals, then I think it'd be very hard for them to dispute that those improvements are a cause of this project. So there is within the original LDA a mechanism when one party believes the other is in default, you have to give notice, the other party has to respond to that notice, whether or not they believe they're in default. If they do not believe they're in default, then the parties have to make good faith efforts to resolve that dispute. If they can't resolve that dispute, then there's an arbitration provision. So there's a quite extensive dispute resolution within the original LDA that's on the land records. But again, I think they'd have a very hard time arguing that these infrastructures that are a condition of their approvals for this project are not related to this project if they're being imposed as part of those approvals.
Another issue that came up was I vaguely recall, because a discussion, which I think was an executive session, I'm not sure, a while back. The GGP owns the property, it's their property. We understand there's provisions in the business terms which require the anchors to be there a certain amount of time, the rating, the rating of the mall, Class A, all of that's down there. And I understand there's provisions in the LDA that prevents the developer from packaging this particular property with other properties for investment purposes. Is there a provision to prevent, the question I was asking was not clear on, is there a provision that prevents the redeveloper from walking away and that's selling the property in 3 years?
They can sell the property to whoever they like after they're issued a CO. Until they're issued a CO, they can't sell it without common council and I believe the redevelopment agency's prior approval, which can't be unreasonably withheld. However, because GGP is probably the second largest mall developer in the country, I think that you have a very good argument to say that unless the number one mall developer comes in and wants to buy it, that you could say that you're not comfortable with I'll say a lesser company.
Okay. And the final question, and this, I think a lot of people are very pleased with the local hiring provisions in it. Is there teeth, in your opinion, are there teeth in that provision to really push them to go local?
Well,
And do they have to justify, how do they justify it when it's not local?
That was raised at a prior meeting, and I believe Mr. Sheehan raised a very good point that there would probably be a compliance officer that was assigned to this task as one of those outside consultants that GGP has agreed to pay for because it's related to this project, to make sure that all of these terms in the LDA are complied with. So I think it would be that person's job to ensure that this is being complied with and that they are making their best efforts. We tried to make the best efforts language a little bit stronger in this agreement by giving them some guidelines as to what they have to do, who they can have to give priority to over hiring. And I believe, without flipping through the document, they have to give the highest priority to those individuals that reside in the lowest poverty levels within the city. Then I believe it's the 3 lowest poverty zip codes within the city. Then anybody within the city. Then anybody within Fairfield County. And then anybody within the state of Connecticut. So there's a tiering effect to try to keep it within Norwalk first, then close proximity to Norwalk, then within the state, and then obviously we can look elsewhere to try to get them all built.
Okay, one last question, if I may, and I'll be done. This is for Mr. Sheehan. We keep hearing no traffic study, no traffic study, no traffic study. How are you approving this? What's going on here? This makes no sense. Could you explain as much for the public and press as well as us, the actual, where the traffic studies will fit in, how they will be done, so that everybody is clear that we are very much concerned about traffic and it will be addressed appropriately?
Yes, the traffic study, actually, it's listed in the conditions of approval. We bring the developer's attention to additional reviews that will be done, of which traffic and impacts in terms of the impacted area are to be examined by the city of Norwalk using an independent consultant. And that will be done before the project goes to design review.
Mr. Gardner?
Thank you. One comment and then one question. The comment was related to, Ms. Conrad brought up the WPCA, and just for the committee and for you, Tim. At the meeting of the WPCA on the 21st of September, I had asked that it be put on the agenda, and we talked through it at the high level again, because not being in the design phase, it's difficult to project, but just rough order of magnitude based on the engineer's experience, they were projecting on the order of 50,000 gallons that would be generated by a project of this site, as compared to 15 million gallons, which is the average of the plant. So it's not on the sort of scale that would really have an impact. And then going to your point about additional infrastructure, a project of this type, as any project that, or even house for that matter, that seeks to connect to the city's sanitary sewer line, would pay a commercial connection fee based on the size of that connection, which would, and the intention in the way that entire fee structure is developed is, I look at it as a buy-in. It's that project buying in based on its scale into the entire system, so it's intended to recoup sufficient funds, and over the long run, as the system needs to be expanded, that money would be put into the WPCA's coffer for when eventually that comes to pass. And I think it's worth noting that the average flow has a downward trend, because the WPCA and the contractor are working very hard to isolate the system so that rainwater doesn't get in, because that's actually a big part of what drives the flow into the plant. So at the last public hearing, Mr. Naderland made that same comment, and I actually had Ralph Cole contact him and take him through the process, so I think he's a little bit more comfortable now, and he was offered to come down to the plant and get the tour and that whole thing. So I know I am comfortable with it, and obviously the WPCA and DPW will stay involved in this process as it moves forward, so I think that's well in hand. Then my question is related to the comments I heard from Ms. Marsico, but something I heard here. With respect to the public realm, because I don't think there was anybody that was, just saying that what we have before us is perfect, but what I'm hearing is that this process can be an ongoing one, so that we don't have to have it nailed down at this minute, that if this moves forward, is approved by the council, that the public realm will, continue to be defined via the design process. And if that's the case, I think I'm getting a lot more comfortable, because, for one, I'm willing to admit that, I'm not the mall design expert, but I do want to see appropriate public realm uses, and I'm sure everybody does.
As we reviewed at the last meeting, what the condition ultimately does is put the developer on notice as to areas of public realm that are not accepted, categorically not accepted.
Okay.
There will be ongoing conversation and iterations relative to the public realm as it gets into final design. To give you some level of comfort, however, the activation of that space ultimately needs to come back to both the redevelopment agency and the common council for approval. So you're going to have time well spent with the public realm to get you to a point that you're willing to say that meets our expectation.
Okay, thank you, Tim, thank you, Doug.
Any other? Okay, I've just got a couple comments, and I'll just call for the vote. I want to thank this committee, members of the committee, starting back in the winter with Mr. Sims and I being out on Saturday mornings. I offer no excuses, I offer no apologies or anything. I think this is a process, believe it or not, that worked well. The last one I sat through several iterations ago, but they came up with the 95-7 project, took 2+ years from start to finish, especially as it got further down the pike, because the way it used to always be, redevelopment would do their thing, then it would be the council would take a look at, we don't like this, we don't like that, send it back to there. They would fix this, by that time, something else would come along. And that process was too laborious, not productive for the community, not productive for the applicant. I think this process from day one worked well, because the first 90 days were not only spent trying to understand what they were actually putting forth, but it was also gathering information from experts. We actually instituted a study, which answered some of the questions that were asked tonight about office space. It's just, there's such a girth of it between us and Stanford and everywhere else that is not a practical thing for anybody to build unless they have a specific company looking for a specific building. We all were surprised when we looked at the housing market, that we thought, just by looking at units coming on, that was kind of saturated. You got to look at not only NOAA, but it's a regional issue. We were surprised the report came back, there's still capacity for some housing units. We got a report back that told us there was the area had an ability to absorb a hotel, at least one hotel. It also talked about the availability or lack of some retail in the region for the area. It's kind of funny that the square footage they came back with as being a number that the area could support is basically going to be eaten up by the mall. So I think that time, those first 90 days or so, were well spent trying to gather the information. I always want to make sure the public is well informed as well as members of the committee, but the council. And I tried my hardest to make sure that as much as we could, for attorneys and that, for the business terms, but also in the public, that everybody here had a chance to say what they wanted to say, put in their input, get involved as they want to or not want to. So I think 9 months from start to finish is not a bad, because there were some weeks in there lost, not by us. Having said that, there's a motion on the table. Any further discussion on the motion?
Just I'd like to commend Mr. Hempstead for holding us together for a long period of time, sometimes controversial issues, sometimes we were on the same page, sometimes we weren't, but here we are, and he's right, 9 months, maybe a record for Norwalk for a project this size, so I think he deserves to be commended for that.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye, raising your hand. All those opposed, abstentions, so moved. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay.